Today we introduce two-way tables. And what we mean by the two-way table is that now we give meaning to both the rows and columns. So there are two variables or two factors determine the data. So our first example is actually about, and before we look at these numbers, and let me just emphasize a couple of things. And firstly, smoking affects your lungs. So it makes your lungs look dark, almost blackish compared with the healthy lung. And also it affects your skin. And look at these identical twins, and you can easily tell who is a smoker and who is not. So by talking about this example of smoking, I'm by no means suggesting smoking is okay for you. I don't think it's good for you at all. So even though the Bible did not mention smoking specifically, however, there are some principles such as our body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. We need to honor God with our body and so on. So I would strongly advise you to stay away from smoking. And all right, let's take a look at this table. In this table, we can look at the average pH value for different cigarettes and cigars and also the different puffs. So here you see here the different columns represents different cigarettes or cigars, and also different rows represents the number of puffs. The third one, the fifth one, the seventh one, the ninth one, the last one. For some cigarettes or cigar can mean the 11th one. For some means the 10th one. All right. So if you just pause the video and spend a minute or two, look at these numbers and what conclusions can you draw? Please pause the video and think about it. Well, here are a few things that you can possibly observe. First of all, what is the observed mean pH value? Or in other words, what's the range of this data? Well, it's somewhere between 5.8. That's the smallest value. The largest one is 7.2. And the second one is, well, can we conclude that the cigarettes have lower pH values than cigars? And the answer is yes. That's generally speaking true. And the third question we can ask is, what can we conclude about the value of the last puff? The answer is the last puff it has the lower pH value for cigarettes. However, for cigars, the pH value is actually higher. And of course, we can make these observations for this simple model. What if the table is large? What if the table has 12 different rows and 25 columns, or some large tables, and how do you draw conclusions? It's not that simple, is it? So we will need what we call formal analysis. And of course, there are several reasons why we need that. The first obvious reason is a formal analysis offers a very systematic way of examining every measurement. And secondly, it prepares us to face disagreements. So if people disagree with our conclusion, and we can show them that, hey, this is what our form analysis indicates. And we can also communicate precisely what we did. And well, having said all this, and admittedly, there is no single best way of analyzing the data. But usually the standard methods have a great deal of value. Well, before we even look at this example of smoking, let's take a look at the skill related to training. And suppose that you have a musical task to perform, and assuming that our excellence depends on two factors. The first factor is whether you have previous training or not. And the second factor is whether you have a perfect pitch or not. Some people perform as if they have built-in pitch pipes, and I don't. And I guess some of you do, some of you don't. So we're made differently. And now we can imagine that, let's assume that it has as a property that on average, an average person would test score about 100 points. And also on average, the training would add 20 points to one's performance. And of course, no training would deduct 20 points. And also have a perfect pitch, which is in our model is more important than training, would add 30 points, and the absence of it will result in subtraction of 30 points. Now we want to find the average scores for the four types of people. So here, in order to do this, we study what we call the additive model So the cell entry is the grand mean plus the row effect and plus the column effect. So here, let's take a look at the these people summarized into four different categories, and depends on whether you have training or no training, and also perfect pitch or not. So here, let me just draw this table like this. So here is the perfect pitch. And here we have a present, and as well as absent. And also we can have the training. Of course, we divide people into present as well as absent. So now we can divide people into four different categories, depends on what they have and what they don't have before. All right, so here on average, a person will score 100 points. So here on average, we're gonna give a person 100 points. However, with the perfect pitch, so that is the presence of this row effect, we can add a 20 point. So add actually 30 points. So, and also absence of it will minus 30 points. And also the presence of training will add 20 points. 20. And then absence of it will result in negative 20. So now let's find those values. So here, first of all, for this person with perfect training, with perfect pitch and training, we start with 100 and add 30 points because of the perfect pitch and another 20 points because of the training. We're going to end up with 150. Now, the next group is those people who don't have a perfect pitch but have a training before. So we start with 100 and minus 30, it will give you 70 and about plus 20 back. So this type of people give you the 90 points. And then for those people who don't have training but with perfect pitch, we start with 100. We add 10 to add a 30 point because of the perfect pitch, and then subtract 20 points. So this gives results in 110. The last category is where I belong. I don't have training, I don't have perfect pitch, so I start with 100 minus 20 minus 30. I will result in 50 points. So this is the model. And so with this model, we can calculate the column effect and row effect. You see here, the first row, the row effect is plus 20. So this is the 20 on average. With the training, we'll add 20 points to the score. And the second row effect is negative 20. So without the training, that will subtract 20 points from the score. And the first column effect is plus 30 with the perfect pitch. We're going to add 30 points to the score. And the last column, the second column, has the column effect negative 30. So eventually, if you want to find a cell entry, just use the grand mean, which is 100. And then we're going to use the plus the row effect. And whatever the row is, we use this row effect. And then we're going to use the column effect. And this is what we call the additive model. Of course, our model is oversimplified. We only have 2 rows and 2 columns, but this works in general. One final thing I want to remind you before I stop this video is that this is only a model. In reality, not necessarily everything will follow this model 100%. This model is a model that people created, try to describe the reality. However, in real life, you might have some data sets that do not follow this model perfectly. We'll look at those examples in our next video. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you in our next video.